Hey there, race fans. It's race day, top five with me, Frank Five. Nashville, the home and city of music. It's where all the country stars come to shine and rise to stardom. They bring a rowdy crowd out there, also home of the Tennessee Titans. But this weekend, NASCAR shining its return to Nashville for the first time since 1984. And the first time that for the Cup Series, the first time in 10 years that NASCAR in general has run in Nashville. I gotta say, this weekend was so much anticipation, excitement, and energy. We had it all. And another dominant performance by the man to beat this year. Let's get into it. Number one, Kyle Larson. There's just no stopping this dude. He just flat out dominated yesterday's Ally 400 at Nashville Superspeedway, winning it over Ross Chastain, William Byron, Aric Almirola, and Kevin Harvick. Larson from the get-go was just the dominant car. He led the most laps. He won stage 2. He was fast all day. I mean, nobody could keep up with him. I mean, some guys gave him some challenges on the restart, but after a couple laps, he would basically shoot away. I mean, he could just drive off and lead these guys in a heartbeat. At the end of the race, with a lot of cautions that we had in the race, Larson had to save some fuel. He was a little close on fuel, but luckily Cliff Daniels and that whole 5 team were allowed to keep Larson composed, and he was able to save some fuel during the green flag run, and he made it all the way to the end to win the Ally 400. But now that another portion of some drama. He got a little bit of trash on the front of his grill towards the later stages of the race yesterday, but thankfully he caught to the laps car J.J. Yaley to get the debris off the front of the grill where, you know, the temperatures could rise if there's stuff covering that grill. It could literally, you know, it could help downforce and bring some speed, but it could also overheat your engine. But luckily, it didn't affect Larson whatsoever, and he was able to cruise to his 4th win of the season. I mean, okay, so let me get this straight. Larson's won 3 consecutive points races in a row. 4 races if you count the All-Star race. Is anybody going to stop Kyle Larson? The dude is having a year. I mean, 2017 was Kyle Larson's best year in the past. This has so far been his best year. And he's led more laps this season than he has in any previous season he's ever had in NASCAR. The next highest was his 2017 season where he won 4 races. Larson is just on a whole different planet right now. I mean, he's clearly the championship favorite. I think there's a good chance Larson will be in the championship for this year. Number 2, Stuart Haas Racing, an organization that's literally struggled this year, with the exception of their veteran leader in Kevin Harvick. They've been struggling to get good runs out of all 4 cars on a consistent basis. Well, yesterday, they had some good runs. Some had some good finishes, some didn't. So we'll talk about the Stuart Haas cars in general. Kevin Harvick, obviously the senior leader of the team. He's just been the only thing that's kept Stuart Haas relevant this season. He's the only driver in the top 16 in points as we currently stand. He still does not have a win, but yesterday he brought the number 4 car home with a solid top 5 finish. I mean, Harvick's team has been really solid on tracks where we have the high horsepower, low downforce package, which we had for yesterday's race. I mean, you know, you look at the size of the track, it's kind of like a mile and a half, but it really isn't a mile and a half. And I'll explain more about that in a little bit. Harvick stayed in the top 10 pretty much the entire day and then jumped into the top 5 by the time we started the final stage. So he had the speed to keep up there, didn't have the speed to run down Kyle Larson, but he had good speed regardless to stay up there. Aric Almirola, my goodness gracious, things are finally turning around for this team. Folks, this guy's had a bad year. And it's not the cars that are hurting him. It's just the bad luck. You know, sometimes they don't have the results that they need, that they quite deserve. They've had a chance to run in the top 10, top 15 the previous couple weeks, but the luck, it just hadn't been there for them. Well, last week in a non-point event, All-Star weekend, Almirola won the All-Star Open put him into the All-Star race, and he came away with the top 10. This weekend, he started on the pole for the Ally 400, and that pole run was no fluke. That 10 car stayed in the top 10 the entire day and ran in the top 5 late. I mean, this was the shot in the arm this 10 team needed. It's their first top 5 of the season, and they're only their second top 10. Yes, that's how bad a year it's been for Aric Almirola, a guy that's made the playoffs the last 3 years. He's going to need a win to get into the playoffs. He's too far back in points. But if this run that he's had with the All-Star weekend run he had last week and the run he had yesterday to get a 4th place finish, Could things be turned around for the 10 team? Could they begin to run up front and compete for wins? Time will tell. As for the other two short Haas cars, Chase Briscoe and Cole Custer, they didn't get the finishes they deserved. But the speed was definitely there for both those guys. Chase Briscoe had a great run, top 10, top 15 for a lot of the race. But late in the race, he lost his brakes and hit the wall. Cole Custer was running in the top 10 earlier. He lost his right rear brakes and unfortunately had to go to the garage and repair it. And I think they got back into the race. I'm not sure if they finished it. If they did, then that's good. But regardless, the speed was there for short Haas racing this weekend. They have yet to have all 4 cars, with the exception of super speedway races, on the same competition level, like, you know, being competitive on a race that's not on a super speedway. I think Tony Stewart and Gene Haas got to be pretty proud of the accomplishments they made for this weekend. Can he carry forward for the rest of the year? Only time will tell. And will Calvin Harvick win a race soon? I still have hope that Harvick will. Number 3, brakes. Oh my goodness gracious, folks. The brake failures in yesterday's race was just mind-blowing. That's a lot of brake failures I've seen in a NASCAR race. This is a really different racetrack. This is the first time the Cup Series has ever been here to Nashville Superspeedway. And boy, were guys complaining about, you know, the brakes are soft and they couldn't put their brakes to the floor. Some guys lost their brakes. Guys hit the wall of losing brakes. Ryan Blaney had it happen. Chris Buescher and Justin Haley did it on the same lap because Haley's brake rotor broke and Buescher ran over and he hit the wall. Ryan Preece had his rear brake fail. As I mentioned, Cole Custer, Chase Briscoe, Brad Keselowski lost his brakes late in the race. A lot of guys are dealing with breakage yesterday. This is not a typical track that some drivers would expect. As I mentioned, this is not a 1.5 mile track. You look at the size of the track, it seems like it's 1.5 miles. But realistically, this is a relatively flat racetrack. There's not a lot of banking in the corners. Some guys were able to move up a little high, but guys were basically down on the bottom. If you ran up on the high side, you were conserving and saving your brakes and not using a lot of them. You could just roll through the center. You could also save your tires. But guys were running on the bottom yesterday, and there were so many brake failures. It's just unbelievable. We did have practice this weekend, you know, because it's a new venue, a new track we're going to with the new protocols this year for certain races where we can qualify and practice. But a lot of guys dealt with brakes yesterday, and I mean the brake dust too. Changing the right front of Ryan Blaney early in the race before he went out, the brake dust that came off that right front, whoo, that was a lot of brake dust. So a lot of guys got to go back and reevaluate how they can manage their brakes on a track like this when we come back here next year, hopefully, because this is a good venue and a good turnout yesterday. Number 4, guys that needed really good runs to help them in the points. Got it yesterday. Ross Chastain, his career best finish for the NASCAR Cup Series in Chip Ganassi Racing. It's his first year with the team. The early part of this year, the team has struggled. I mean, with the exception of their top 10 of the Daytona 500, this team has struggled for consistency. But in recent weeks, I think they've turned the corner. They've had some good they had a good qualifying effort at Charlotte in the Coke 600 before they lost their engine. They've had some good performances with Sonoma. They ran well up there. They transferred to the All-Star race last weekend. I think things seem to be turning around for this 42 team, a team that missed the playoffs last year when ultimately Kyle Larson got fired and Matt Kenseth was put into the role for the rest of the season and ultimately didn't do well. Ross Chastain is one of the future stars of the Cup Series and he's the future of Chip Ganassi Racing. He put together a really good performance yesterday, ran in the top 10 all day long and charged at the end with the freshest tires while guys were saving fuel. He was pushing it to the maximum and came away with a second place finish. And he's only like 40, 50 plus points behind the cutoff line to make the playoffs. There's a chance he could point his way in if guys in front of him continue to have bad results. So, good job by the whole 42 team. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., his performance blew me away yesterday. I mean, this JCG Doherty team has been better than last year. But in recent weeks, the 47 team hasn't really run well. And of course, they had that hard crash at the road course at Sonoma. They didn't transfer to the All-Star race last weekend. Yesterday, he put together the best performance I've seen of this 47 team in quite a while. That was not on a super speedway. Ricky Stenhouse ran top 5 the first 2 stages. That car was fast. He was second in class to Kyle Larson for the majority of the race. Then, when we got to the final stage and we had more pit stops under yellow because guys were losing brakes and hitting the wall, Allmendinger fell behind, Stenhouse, my mistake, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., not AJ Allmendinger, my apologies, because Allmendinger used to drive the car. Stenhouse, he fell back, but picked his way back into the front and got a top 10 out of it, a 6th place finish. A good result for the team, and they're relatively close to the point bubble as well. So the 47 team did a good job yesterday. And finally, Kurt Busch, I think, is getting his mojo back. Top 10 at Sonoma, top 10 at the All-Star race, top 10 yesterday, ran top 5 earlier. He was our stage 1 winner, which I'll get to that in a moment. Another solid performance. He's now 24 points outside that last spot for 16th place in points, pending we don't get any more new winners, unless if Kurt Busch is one of them. Kurt Busch is 24 points outside the cutoff line. That Chris Buescher crash yesterday helped Kurt Busch the most. He was down 63 points entering the race below the cutoff line. He gained 39 points on 16th place. He's still outside, but only 24 points down. That could be made up in at least probably the next race in case Buescher has another problem. So Kurt Busch fans, stay optimistic. He's coming, and I think he's going to get that last spot in the playoffs. Maybe a win will definitely solidify him in. And number 5, the turnout, the racing, the atmosphere yesterday at Nashville for its first ever Cup race was amazing. The racing, I mean, with the exception of Larson getting massive leads, the racing in general was pretty close. We had good battles, good side-by-side action, guys running side-by-side. You could pass. The restarts were so much fun. There were 3 and 4 wide down the backstretch after turns 1 and 2. I mean, those guys slip and slide up the racetrack and everything. Those restarts were a lot of fun yesterday. And the racing, in the long runs, there was some good battles going on in the middle of the pack, for position. Guys trying to fight their way to the front. Guys in the middle of the pack trying to get back to the front. Guys trying to stay up front. It was some good battles. The fans in attendance yesterday, amazing. It was sold out. The first sold-out venue for NASCAR since the Daytona 500 last year, before COVID hit. So this is big. The next couple of races coming up, we've got almost no restrictions on grandstand capacity whatsoever. Some will, but some of them are most of them are basically saying, yeah, everybody's allowed to come back now. So things are getting better. The atmosphere was just crazy. We had all the superstars today. Brad Paisley was on the pre-race show for NBC. Luke Combs, who's going to perform for the Daytona 500 pre-race show next year with full grandstand capacity like he did at the limited capacity Daytona 500 earlier this year, gave the command to start the engines, and that was awesome. Pitbull, the owner of Trackhouse Racing, was there. Alvin Kamara was there, the running back for the New Orleans Saints, who is now taking a little part in NASCAR for I think not like the youth movement, but something like in general regarding youth and engagement in NASCAR. That's pretty cool to get football stars into NASCAR. I mean, Bernard Pollard, a former cornerback and former Super Bowl champion of the Baltimore Ravens from Super Bowl 47 in the year 2012, waved the green flag to start the race. He became a NASCAR fan last year, though he said, "I'm afraid of heights. I'm clinging onto this the flag stand while I'm waving the green flag." But that was really cool. I heard Vince Neil from Motley Crue was there. It was good to see a lot of stars come out, and hopefully more of them begin to turn out in the next couple for the rest of the season. But for Nashville in general, it was good. And it was NBC's first broadcast of the season. Rick Allen, Steve Letarte, Jeff Burton, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Marty Snyder, Kelly Savis, Parker Kligerman, Kyle Petty, Dale Jarrett on the broadcast. Even Chris Collinsworth's son, Jack Collinsworth, was on the broadcast. If you all watch Sunday Night Football, you know who Chris Collinsworth is. He's the color analyst next to Al Michaels. His son, Jack, began being a part of the NBC Sunday Night Football pre-game broadcast last year, and now he was at the race yesterday. I wonder if he's going to be hosting the pre-race shows because Chris Savoda is no longer there with the organization. It's good to have NBC back. Junior had a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of insight. It was good to hear the NBC guys. They will now carry us all the way to the Checkers in Phoenix this year. So the atmosphere just in general and the racing yesterday was really good. Finally, driver recap for Chase Elliott. Yep, get ready for this. So Chase Elliott started in the top 10. We originally won stage 1, ran to the top 10 for the majority of the race. Then with 30 laps to go in the race, he complained, "I may have a loose wheel, I may have a tire going down." Luckily, he brought it home 13th. Well, that's not where he finished, folks. Chase Elliott was disqualified for having more than 3 lug nuts loose. If you have four lug nuts on that tire he was complaining about were loose, and he had a loose lug nut on another wheel. That results in a disqualification if you fail post-race inspection, or if you have more than 3 lug nuts loose, you're disqualified from the race. Yeah, I'm not really happy about that, and it was not a good day for me for racing for my favorite drivers, and I'm pretty ticked off. I mean, the Elliot disqualification, we ran well. We ran top 5, top 10, but the finish 13th and then get disqualified doesn't make it any better. My IndyCar driver, Joseph Newgarden, he was going to win Road America. The gearbox gave up with 2 laps to go. And Lewis Hamilton was leading with 2 to go, and Max Verstappen passed him for the lead in the French Grand Prix. Yesterday was not a good day for me for my race car drivers. The only exception is Lewis Hamilton finished on the podium and still gained points and didn't lose a whole lot to Verstappen. That's fine. But we are battling for the championship, and we're down by 12. Newgarden has yet to win this year. He's 88 points behind the championship lead, and there's probably no way he's going to catch those guys in front of him. Elliot, on the other hand, we still have the win. I'm happy about that. But we also could have had our second stage win of the year yesterday if we didn't get disqualified. But instead, if someone else is deserving it if we get disqualified, Kurt Busch, I'm happy he got it to help him get closer to the top 16. But other than that, for my drivers yesterday, not happy. Not happy whatsoever. But anyways, all that aside, some other news I need to bring up that has come up this week. Alex Bowman has signed a 2-year extension deal with Hendrick Motorsports. Not really surprised about that, because it carries over with Ally, which is the sponsor for the 48 car, till the end of its contract in 2023. So that's good. Bowman's got a multi-year deal done. And also, new teams coming. GMS Racing, who's operating in the Truck Series, have announced that they are starting a Cup team in 2022. Now, it has not been revealed yet if it's a full-time or a part-time team or if they have acquired a charter. So, time will tell. We also don't know the number. We don't know the sponsor. We don't know the driver. But to hear GMS Racing coming to Cup next year, get more teams in. We need it. And finally, Colleague Racing, who announced that they're going to run full-time in Cup next year, have announced they are going to run 2 full-time cars. One of them will be Justin Haley. The other one will be with multiple drivers, including AJ Allmendinger, particularly the road courses. And they have also leased 2 charters from the Spire Motorsports team. One of them is the 77 car, and the other one is the one that Trackhouse Racing is using right now. Because you can only use it for 1 year, and then you have to go find another charter, or you buy the charter from someone if they're willing to give it up. This does not affect Corey LaJoie. He still keeps his charter and his car for next year to be allowed to have a race. So that means Trackhouse Racing and Daniel Suarez, who, by the way, ran well yesterday and got a top 10, they need to find a charter for next year. Or they need to get another one from another team, or another team's going to give it to them permanently. So it's good to have Colleague Racing come to the Cup Series next year. We're excited to have brand new teams coming in, but hopefully the 99 team Trackhouse can get a full-time charter, can get a charter for next year, or else they're going to have to qualify. I don't know if Suarez wants to go through that after 2020, where he missed the Daytona 500. I don't think he wants to do that again. So this upcoming weekend is the doubleheader at Pocono. Yes, 2 Cup races on the same on the same weekend. One on Saturday, one on Sunday. We will see who's going to come out on top in Long Pond, Pennsylvania. Will it be Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin, who both have yet to win this year, but both dominated the doubleheader last year? Will Kyle Larson continue his hot streak, or could this week it finally come to a close and maybe his other teammates win, or another driver from a different organization? Will we see a surprise winner after what we saw from Ross Chastain and Ricky Stenhouse this past weekend? We're going to find out, folks. In the meantime, I hope everybody enjoyed the first NASCAR Cup race at Nashville Superspeedway. I thought it was a good race in general. Subscribe, like, congrats once again to Kyle Larson, just continuing this dominant season. Have a great week, everybody.